The Christian and the Campus is a podcast of the Rebels for Christ campus ministry. The college campus is a world of competing stories vying for students' attention and allegiance. The goal of this podcast is to orient students towards Christ in this brave new world so that we can bring about a revolution of redemption on the University of Mississippi and Northwest Community College campuses. Hi, I'm Ben Brinkerhoff, and this is the Christian and the Campus podcast. Today, I am honored to have Assistant Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, Dr. Marsh. He's also the Dean of Students for Ole Miss, so I'll be referring to him as Dean Marsh. And then we also have Assistant Professor of Marketing, Dr. Matt Shaner, and I'll be referring to him as Dr. Shaner. For this is for students, and you will call him by his official title. I just want to, before I've kind of announced your titles, but I would like for each of you kind of to begin this podcast by just telling us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been at the University of Mississippi, and just kind of what has your experience as a Christian been like on this campus?
You want us to start at the top of seniority order or at the bottom?
We'll start from the top. We'll start with Dean Marsh.
All right. Well, I'm not sure about the seniority piece, but I'll just jump in there. Thank you for the invitation. It's been a fun month for me, this month of June, because I've had these, I remember 1 year ago when memories, because it was all about, the interview process and then the job offer and then coming to Oxford to look at homes, which I think we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary when we got to Oxford and started doing the home hunting process. Then we moved in July of 2019, near the end of the month, and started my work here on August 1st of 2019. So coming up on that 1 year mark, and certainly it's been a great adventure, a great professional chapter in my career, and it continues to be so. Certainly not without its challenges and its excitement, but that just adds to the richness of the experience. We felt very welcome as a family in the university and certainly in Oxford. We enjoy the neighborhood we selected and where we live. And we were able to right away find our faith community and get plugged in there. And that's been really important for us. And so overall, it's been a really great transition. It's a special community, both Oxford and also at the university. We're not perfect. Neither of them are perfect. But I think they're full of they're good places with a lot of good people, and so we're certainly it's been a new chapter for me and my family, and to kind of live out our faith and continue to try to raise our children who are still young, and have what we think is important to have a strong church and faith background and community and a church family.
Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing. Dr. Shaner, how about you?
So we actually haven't been here that much longer than Dean Marsh. We just celebrated, I think, our 3rd year anniversary of moving here. So we've been here 3 years. Like Dr. Marsh, we pretty quickly kind of found a faith community that we could plug into, and we've so far liked Oxford quite a bit. I would echo the same sentiments as Dean Marsh on, Ole Miss isn't a perfect place. And I think, even recently, but before the last few months, there was some social turmoil and some things going on campus that we had never experienced in other places. But that being said, there are a lot of good people at Ole Miss who are conscientious. There are a lot of people of faith at Ole Miss who are trying to make a difference. And we're happy to be here and happy to be a part of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing that you just both said, and I think just this is kind of a tangential note, but both of you talked about how quickly it was important to both of you and your families to get plugged in with a community of faith. And one thing, this is, as I've kind of said, an unsolicited advertisement for the Rebels for Christ campus ministry. But if you're an incoming student that is listening to this, I don't care what. I do care. I would love for you to join us at the Rebels for Christ campus ministry, and I should say that. But get plugged in somewhere. Find a community of faith that you can get plugged into that is going to help sustain you and shape you and form you during this time of change and confusion and tumult, and really just transition, right? So get plugged in somewhere. and invest yourself into a community that's going to invest back into you and watch God work through that. So I loved kind of just in both of your short testimonies of sorts that was an important thing for you. And I think that's really important for students to hear, is just get plugged in somewhere. And we would love for that to be at the Rebels for Christ campus ministry. So the conversation I want to have today, this is a unique opportunity. I'm deeply thankful to both of you for being willing to be on this podcast. This is a special opportunity, in my opinion, for me and for our students listening to this podcast, to hear from y'all's voices. So I want to take this opportunity to talk about what this podcast is really all about, and that is that the college campus is truly a world of competing stories, right? It is filled with different people from different places and different backgrounds, but we're all inhabiting the same physical space. And we have to learn how to do life together as a community. And so from your position, either as administration, Dean Marsh, or faculty, Dr. Shaner, how is that reality, that the fact that campus is a world of competing stories, how is it an obstacle for students? And then also, how is it an opportunity for students?
I think a lot of students, particularly at Ole Miss, come from, smaller towns. Not all of them. Some are from, Dallas, Memphis, Atlanta, Houston. But we get a lot of students who are from small areas, who may not have simply been exposed to the amount of diversity that we have here. There may be students who have never met a Muslim or a Hindu person before, or who have never met a gay person before, or who have never met a Democrat before, or any number of things that, that you might run into on campus, of people in ways, for good, better, worse, indifferent, ways that people are different than you. And that's, as you mentioned, it's a tremendous opportunity to open up your worldview and see the way that people live outside of some of the sheltered communities that we came from. I mean, I grew up in a pretty big city in Chicago, and even going off to school for the first time, there was a whole world of possibilities that opened up to me that, largely came from the diversity there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll add that I agree with Dr. Shaner, and I think to add to that, I think one of the really fabulous aspects of a college campus, and certainly Ole Miss is no exception, is that richness of that diversity. People from not only all around the country and different walks of life and backgrounds and world experiences and worldviews, but all around the world. It's we have a very large international population as well. And that does present, kind of more to the opportunity part of your question, it does present just a really wonderful opportunity to build relationships with people, to Dr. Shaner's point, that perhaps you'd never had, any exposure to folks from that place or from that worldview, or, whatever their experience might be. And so it's really important to be open to building those relationships with people, to learning about their lives and their stories. As you use the word stories, I think that's an important part of this whole conversation. And, I think an obstacle, though, to what, Dr. Shaner said, is that though many students, if they've grown up in a church, they've, maybe, if they grew up in a church that focused on evangelism, for instance, they might have that commitment to, like, the cause of being able to go all around the world, and make disciples, as the Great Commission states. But then there's still, I think, this tendency for some to, like, keep people at arm's length, because I'm worried that I might lose who I am or what I think or believe if I engage too much. So I think it's really important to come into college and realize that is an opportunity to do that, but don't let it be an obstacle. Don't hold yourself back from all these experiences that are really important and wonderful to, like, meet a lot of different people and build relationships with them.
Yeah, I love just kind of what both of you are saying, that idea that diversity, in a sense, that can be found on a secular state university campus is both maybe one of the greatest obstacles and opportunities a student faces. We live in a world, when you inhabit a college campus, you live in a world of just endless possibility, further than our imaginations can go, at least further than mine could go as a college freshman when I showed up on Auburn's campus. And but it is also scary, right? I mean, it is intimidating to engage with people who are different from you, possibly, and ideas that you've never been exposed to before. And so as students are kind of thinking about how to navigate that for the first time, or maybe they feel like they didn't navigate it well their freshman, sophomore, or junior year, and they're coming back and they want to navigate it better as a Christian. What should the posture of a Christian college student be to campus? This place that is truly filled with many different stories coming from many different backgrounds and different places and different worldviews. What should the posture of a Christian be towards this campus?
I appreciate the question, Ben, because it's an important question for students to be thinking about as they come into the college campus. Because students are going to come in. I mean, we all did, right? We got on our campus. If we started as a new freshman on a college campus, however many years ago, we were all nervous and anxious, and you're just trying to find our way. And there's a whole developmental process that's going to take place for you, not only spiritually, but also in so many other ways as far as your growth as a person and your individual development. But the reality is that everybody's feeling that way. Right, you're not the only one, and even for the people that think they have it all together on the outside, like you look at them, you're like, wow, they have it all together. Everybody, to a person on the campus, has hurts. They've got a story, like they've got a background, they've got things that they're bringing with them into the campus experience. And so people, it's like I had someone say to me, and I respected them a lot because it really helped shape my view or my lens when I would encounter the student body on campus, my colleagues the same way, is to realize that, you're kind of walking out into this field of wounded people. Everybody's got pain. Everybody's got things that have been hard or that are currently really difficult that they're dealing with. And so entering into that space with a real sense of compassion is really, I think, important. And just that acknowledgement that, you're working on things in your life, that everybody's working on things in their life. And, just to have that more of a heart and posture of compassion is important.
I really appreciate what you're saying, Dean Marsh, and I remember when we were talking before we had started recording, you mentioned the phrase walking wounded. And that really was just such vivid imagery for me, that we live in a world of the walking wounded, and that posture of compassion is really kind of what threads the needle for us for being in the world but not of the world. We that posture of compassion really helps us see people and their stories and their hurts and their habits and their hangups for who they are in the image of God. And so I really appreciated that. Dr. Shaner, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I would echo Dr. Marsh's sentiments. I think we live in a world that continually tries to push us towards tribalism. You define yourself by your demographics or the religious group you belong to. And there's obviously important identity issues that we want to associate with, but I think that it's dangerous to try to peg people or pigeonhole them too early. Everyone's made in the image of God, recognizing that and help us overcome some of those prejudices that we throw up because of this tribalism. And I would also add, I would imagine that students who are listening to this are probably already in some flavor or another, they ascribe to Christian ideals or they consider themselves Christians. Another kind of diversity that you're going to find is even within Christendom, people don't always have the same opinions and see things the way you do. And I think, having wisdom in how you navigate your relationships and how you navigate the competing stories within Christian circles is something that that would serve an incoming student really well.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really important thing, and honestly, Dean Marsh is really helpful to campus ministries, and helping us collaborate together so that we're knowing that we're all on the same team, and so I really appreciate that, Dean Marsh. So this idea, I kind of both of you kind of honed in on this word of compassion, and I think that is, as I was saying, this beautiful posture that Christians should take towards campus. And so I guess my question for you is, what should a posture of compassion look like on the University of Mississippi campus? What does a posture of compassion look like in a student as they interact with people with different worldviews? And what does a posture of compassion look like? How does it work itself out in life as a Christian student interacts with new ideas and perspectives?
I mean, a number of thoughts come to mind, and time will probably elude us to completely flesh this out. But I think a number of things. So, we know the principle of don't be the first to cast a stone, right? Because I mean, we all have our failings and our shortcomings. And so I think it's important to extend grace to our fellow students, grace to the other folks we come into contact with all across campus. And we're not always going to agree with everyone, and that's okay. But I think all of us on a campus can hopefully get to a place where we can have that, live out that creed of mutual respect, that we can have mutual respect for each other. And I think our political climate today and social media certainly doesn't help. So many things are toxic and combative. And I would love to be able to raise the tenor of that conversation on our college campus. And I think that starts with things like giving people the benefit of the doubt, like don't assume the worst about them, giving them grace. And how much more should someone who professes to, be a Christian be some of the first, to sort of walk in that way. So those are a couple of thoughts I have about a posture of compassion on our campus.
Yeah, and that's beautiful in the sense too that Christians would be salt on our campus if that's how we acted, right? I mean, that we would bring out the flavor of life in a beautiful way if that's how we responded to the issues of our day and our campus. So that is a world of competing stories. So I really appreciate that.
So I think one of the ways that a posture of compassion can play itself out is through looking for ways, and not huge ways, but small ways to serve other people. And I can speak from an instructor perspective because I see this every semester. We have international students, which is obviously one kind of diversity that we have on campus. And it comes time to assign a small group project, and they sort of get, when the music stops playing, they're left without a chair. But every once in a while, I see a student, approach them, introduce themselves, often to or inviting them into their group. Things like that, which are, not a huge time commitment. It's not necessarily an earth-shattering, act of philanthropy, but it's those small acts of kindness and service that can make a big difference in your ability to develop authentic relationships with people, and then to see people in a compassionate way.
Yeah, I love that example because one of the things my campus minister told me quite often was the Christian life is not about an ordinary commitment to extraordinary means, but it's about an extraordinary commitment to very ordinary means. And in the Christian life of compassion, this posture of compassion, I think often kind of manifests itself in the same way. It's an extraordinary commitment to those small intentional moments where you see and value those who might be marginalized, and there's a lot of power in that. And I don't know if you have other kind of examples of that or other kind of practical ways students, Christian college students can embody that posture of compassion, but I'd love to hear them if you do.
Well, I love what Dr. Shaner said, is that one example is so powerful, and that can be done everywhere across campus, just being an includer. I was talking with my daughter about this last night, and she's only 10, but we started talking about, she's asking questions about being in junior high or high school and the popular crowd. And, Dad, what crowd were you in? And I'm like, okay, the sooner you can stop worrying about all that, the better. The important thing is be a leader, be an includer, and look out, sort of for the underdog. So I think that's just a great thing for students to keep in mind, is just look for the person who's not included or who might be uncomfortable, and invite them in.
Yeah.
And I would, maybe a similar example, but I get students in my office multiple times a semester, and I don't know, it's because I have a face that looks like a therapist, or if my office chairs are really comfortable, but with very little prompting, people have all kinds of problems that just come spilling out. And I think a student who was, wanting to show the salt and light of Christ with, again, not a monumental effort, but just hey, how are you doing today? Or, how's it going? How was your weekend? Just with a couple of simple questions when you pop into class, or when you see someone that, sits across the room from you in whatever, general ed class that you had that morning, can often yield opportunities to connect with people in ways that you might not otherwise have the opportunity to do.
Yeah, I love just kind of y'all's different examples of that. And if you're a student that's listening to this, kind of take this conversation and run with it. You are the ones who inhabit campus as a student. Take what you're hearing here and allow God to spark your imagination for more things you could do. It doesn't have to be huge, but God works often through small acts of faithfulness. And I think one of the things that's kind of like slowly standing out to me as y'all talk is that idea. Dr. Marsh, I think Dean Marsh, you used the phrase of be an includer. But like one of the things that has to happen, for me at least, to be an includer is I first have to be secure. I'm not able to move to include someone else unless if I feel included. And for the Christian, our compassion comes from Christ's compassion towards us. And I think that's just so important to focus in on, because like the first layer of this, we're not going to be willing to be vulnerable, right? Diversity or inhabiting this world of competing stories that is a college campus is going to require of us to put ourselves at risk in some way, to put ourselves out there emotionally, kind of psychologically, in some form or fashion. And it is only, I think, when we're secure in Christ that we're going to be able to do that, and so I don't know if y'all want to share anything kind of in that vein, if you even part of your own journey or something, but I just wonder if y'all have thoughts on that idea. It's on you, Dr. Shaner.
So when we talk about security as a Christian on a college campus, I think a really practical and concrete thing that a student could do is to get plugged into a faith community. And you talked about that in your intro, Ben, but there is power in community. And so, you're not going to be on every day. You're going to sometimes have doubts. You're going to have struggles. If you don't have somebody by your side, or a group of people by your side to help you work through that, like, your feelings of security are not going to be as strong as they could be. And I think that, we were created to do life and to worship and to be the salt and light as a community, not as individual lone rangers who are out there by themselves trying to make a difference.
Yeah. I mean, as a campus minister, I'm very biased towards that, but I couldn't have put that better myself. Dean Marsh, do you have anything in terms of that, just in all your experience of years and years with college students, just kind of what it means for a college student to be secure in Christ and how they can come to that so that they can be compassionate to campus?
Yeah, no, I echo what Dr. Shaner shared. I think certainly the faith community, both, a local church, but also if you can get plugged into one of the campus ministries that fits you as a student, that's also really important. Both are going to be important. And so you need those corporate opportunities to be together, to, to sort of be built up, be encouraged, be ready to go out and then, live the text that you've just studied and talked about. I think it's also important to have someone in your life that can be a mentor to you, that can, help you to grow as a Christ follower, and can really just, invest in you and in your life. They've got more experience, maybe more wisdom, just from more years of life, or more years of walking with God. And so that can be a really important asset, because again, to my point earlier, as a college student, assuming you're coming in, 18, 19 years old, all college students, we all did, but you kind of go through just this developmental process that's going to happen. You're going to gain confidence, and you're going to grow in the way you can manage and kind of figure out how to wrestle with emotions, and, understanding, going more from being like an individual to a part of a community and how I fit. But all that's going to happen, but it's so much richer when it's infused and informed with your own personal spiritual development. And so it's important to give that the priority it deserves. And it will really help you to grow in all those ways, but to grow also in, again, in your understanding of what it means to like live a Christian life, and to have compassion on people all around you.
The just kind of as we do kind of come to close on this, just kind of one last question. In light of all of this we've been talking about, just what other practical advice do you have for incoming and returning students, just from your positions and your perspective as campus faculty and administration?
So I would say two things. Number one, and a lot of 18 and 19-year-olds they don't spend a lot of time in self-reflection. Some of them do more than others. But I think spending some time thinking about, like, what are my values? Like, what kind of person do I want to become? Really thinking through that helps you make some good decisions before those decision points ever even happen. So if I say, like, I'm a person who does not want to be addicted to drugs and alcohol, well, that can help you when you have some key decisions to make about drugs and alcohol. Or I'm a person who doesn't want to be involved in toxic relationships, or, who ends up creating a broken family. Well, that can help you when you come to some decision points about romantic relationships. So I think, not that you can anticipate everything that's going to happen to you, but the more you think about the kind of person you want to be ahead of time, the more that when you're in those key moments, it will help you make a better decision. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and you touched on this earlier, Ben, but I had already thought of this answer because you sent us the questions ahead of time. So I'm going to say it again anyway. Be faithful in small things. And this is one of my pet peeves, so I'm going to get on a soapbox for a minute. But, like, if you want to be a person of integrity, then, like, decide that you're not going to cheat on a test. If you want to be a person of integrity, decide that you're going to tell the truth. And those ultimately are small things. Sometimes they can feel big in the moment, but I think making a commitment to be faithful in small ways over time can have really, really big effects. And honestly, where a lot of students go astray is they think that sometimes decisions are going to have a bigger impact than they really do. And so they end up making a wrong decision. So, like, and this is my soapbox about cheating because it drives me crazy, but, nobody cares well, it depends on your field, I guess. But in my field, nobody cares what your GPA is once you leave college, and especially the further out of college that you are. But, people cheat on tests because for like a 2-point GPA bump, or they think that it's going to make a difference in the trajectory of their future. And the reality is, that moment of dishonesty could actually hurt you more than being honest about things, or taking the lower grade because you didn't study enough. Thinking about things like drugs and alcohol, like is one drink or one party gonna kill you? Well, it could actually, but more than likely, that's not necessarily gonna shape your whole world. It's also not gonna bring you like the social notoriety and popularity that you might think it will either. And so, like, just resolving ahead of time that I'm going to be faithful to God in small things over the course of your time in college can help to, number one, help you stay where you need to be in your faith, but also two, help you grow beyond that to become the person that God would have you to be.
Yeah, man, you let a faculty member talk and they have to bring up cheating, I mean,
Drives me crazy because there's no reason for it.
preach, Dr. Shaner.
I've had students cheat who already had an A in the class. It's like, what in the world?
I do think on a deeper cultural level, how much we are defined, and this may be a good thing to say. I mean, it's something I struggle with. That we were talking before. How I'm still in grad school. I am no more or less than my last grade. It's just something that was kind of ingrained into me at a young age. It's not necessarily my parents' fault. It's just part of the culture I lived in. I grew up in Auburn. I grew up in an academic town, and it was just part of it. And when you're in that world of academia, it's hard to not be defined by how well you did on your last test. But yet again, to kind of bring this back to security, it's not my last grade that I find my security in. It's in Christ, and it'll keep me from doing things like cheating on tests. That'll get people like Dr. Shaner really upset at you, inappropriately so. Do you have any thoughts just on kind of practical advice for students as they're embarking upon this next year, Dean Marsh?
Yeah, sure, Ben. Thank you. And I want any student to know, that might be listening to this podcast, I'm here for all students. So I'm not the dean of Christian students. I'm the dean of all the students. And I'm here for all of you. I want to be a resource, an advocate for you. That's my job. And I happen to be a Christian, and I'm, certainly thankful for my personal journey and personal walk with the Lord. I hope that, I'm sure Dr. Shaner would agree. Like, I hope you see something in me that, hopefully reflects well on God. And that's, but let me know if it doesn't, because I need to be, gently reminded of that if that's the case. But I think that's a challenge for all of us. If we're going to come to a college campus as a Christian or become a Christian, we have to continually be on that journey of understanding what that means and what's my role and how do I fulfill that calling. And part of that is being that bright light that shines and lifts people up and is encouraging to all those we come in contact with. And we're not going to get it right every day. I know I mess up, and I'm thankful for grace. I'll go back to that word grace that was mentioned earlier, that we need to extend to each other. But I think from some practical things, I love the Proverbs. And so a couple that came to my mind as you asked this question, there's the proverb that says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man or one person sharpens another, depending on the translation you read. It's all about being around people who can build you up. And I think there's another proverb that's sort of related that I'm sure all of our listeners have heard, that bad company corrupts good character. So again, it kind of goes back to that tension we opened up with. I mean, it's important to build those relationships with people that are different from you, because you want to learn, from them and be able to help them get to know you, and just, have all that rich network of relationships. But your close circle, the people that you are really going to kind of do life with and, make a lot of important decisions and spend a lot of important time with, think about and really evaluate who are those people, and are they lifting me up or pulling me down? Are they sharpening me, or are they making me more dull to the things of God? So definitely evaluate those. And I definitely echo what what Dr. Shaner shared, as well as some of those practical considerations. Those were really good.
Dean Marsh, you kind of got my wheels to turn in there for just a second. When you said you're not the dean of Christian students, you're the dean of all students. I'm not the Christian marketing assistant professor. I'm just an assistant professor. It would be frowned upon for me to actively use my class as primarily a platform for evangelism, nor do I think I would want to do that really. And so, I think there's maybe this idea that, like, if I'm a Christian on a college campus, if I really am doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm going to be beating people over the head and like being almost abrasive. And I think the opposite is true. I think that soft influence is actually in the end more influential than direct influence in some cases. And so as a student on a campus, I would be thinking not like, should I be standing on a street corner with a bullhorn preaching at people, but like, how can I really develop genuine relationships with people that's going to reflect the light of Christ as opposed to beating them over the head with it, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I think that's the challenge for all of us, whether you're in college or not, is how do I live that out in a way that it's going to be attractive to other people instead of turning them off? Because in a lot of jobs, you're not going to necessarily have the opportunity to be explicit and direct about your faith. It's going to have to come through what people see in you and the way that you act and your posture of compassion that we talked about earlier.
Yeah. Well, I think that's just probably a beautiful place to kind of end this. And thank you so much to both of you for being willing to participate in this. And it's been a joy for me and I just pray blessings on both of you, as I know it is probably a stressful time as a lot of decisions are being made for campus. So just people are praying for both of you, especially you, Dean Marsh, as decisions are being made probably by administration. I'm sure that it is stressful. So thank you both for what you do. Thank you for being a part of this podcast. And thank you for your witness to this campus that we all love and are excited about embracing together this next year.